Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Ionian, Locrian. Those are of course the 7 modes, and if that's a little bit confusing for you guys, I'm explaining my story here in this video, so I'm trying to get rid of that confusion, but also help you guys to practice those modes, very practical way, and take that information to the fusion world. That's what we're doing today. Fusion world in general, guys, there's no way around it. Eventually you will also need to learn some good arpeggio shapes. There's a link in the description below for a free arpeggio guide, my 10-pager, even indicating which I think arpeggio shapes that Greg Howe or players like Greg Howe use all the time. Secondly, guys, consider subscribing. I'm doing these lessons almost weekly, and for my patrons, people that support me a little bit on Patreon, you get a membership description below. There's going to be some downloadable stuff relative to this lesson as well, so let's get into it right now. So it's 1993, I was a young guy, I was trying to play guitar, right? Got my first guitar, and basically how I started with scales, guys, maybe interesting for you to know. It's really a real story, right? There was internet, I don't know, but there was no YouTube, right? And a friend of mine gave me this, literally on tissue, he gave me this. You should know that. Because I was still going like, don't know where my fingers should go. And then that first thing he gave me, I think it was having lessons, was really an eye-opener already, right? I was like, whoa! Suddenly what I was doing in the guitar started making sense, right? So it was really cool. That was of course the minor pentatonic scale. And I started to expand it a little bit as well to the left and right. I was like, kind of even my ear dictating the way. So kind of expanding that, also listening to Gary Moore back then, was finding out that there's like also this note. Right, so the blue note of course. So that was kind of my first years starting with this little drawing, I would say. I was really like, whoa, this is kind of cool. We were doing jams as well, guys, right? My friends and I would do these things, right? And I was like, I was trying to get those pentatonic licks in, sometimes the blue note as well. We would do blues things like this typical shuffle. We're just having fun for the first years in minor pentatonic and the minor pentatonic blues scale eventually, right, with the blue note. Then I also was back then very much into Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler, and that was my first encounter with modes, because Mark Knopfler would do things like this, maybe in a D minor. He would do like, right? I was like, that's strange. Don't know these notes. Some other notes apparently, right? That was my first encounter. That happened to be the D Aeolian scale, and it was really cool. Again, I kind of expanded on that, right? I was like, so I was also doing here. So I knew some pentatonic stuff here. I was like, I would jam with my friends for hours and hours and weeks and months and years, guys, right? In like that kind of minor pentatonic, minor blues, Aeolian world. That was all that I know, but organically I was finding my way in that world. I was finding many positions without even knowing the theory behind it. I was just having fun, right? If I want to go more melodic, more soft, as I would call it, doing those things, right? Those were first years, guys. So my first encounter for me was the Aeolian scale. I didn't know even how it was named, or just Aeolian, right? Then get to know Joe Satriani. I got into trouble, right? So here was Joe Satriani. I was really loving it, not only because of the virtuosic way he played and the melodies, but I couldn't understand it, right? First of all, let's say the summer song, right? Right? And I was like trying to find it by ear. I was completely confused. Right, because now we have a jam in A, we would call it, my friends. And I was like, that note, I didn't know that. I was like, that's very strange. How weird is it? And then didn't make sense at all. Of course, later on I learned it was A mixed Lydian, right? Secondly, another example, Joe Satriani again, Flying in a Blue Dream. It's like that was a C Lydian scale, right? Didn't understand anything of it, guys. I was getting really confused. I was getting really frustrated. I don't understand anything anymore from the guitar, right? Last example maybe, guys, is the Always With Me, Always With You, beautiful major ballad, and Joe goes like, didn't understand anything, although I kind of got like, it's like, that's kind of an Aeolian thing, right? Aeolian of A flat, right? That's very strange. You know what? Don't understand anything. I'm going to do my Aeolian thing here over that track, right? Of course, little did I know it was a B Aeolian. So, guys, I was completely kind of confused. But I was so into it that I started buying some books. So this is before YouTube, because I didn't know anything. So I just went to bookstores, right? And I bought some books of Joe Satriani, which I really recommend in this lesson. Here we go. Those are the tab books from what I believe one of the most important albums you can learn when you want to go into those modes study, right? And those learning some more of the modes, right? These two books, incredible. Why? Because in the first pages there's some theory explanation. And there I got to read about, oh, this is C Lydian. I don't understand C Lydian. Oh, it's a Mixolydian. I was getting more and more into it. Another book that I really can recommend that I stumbled upon is Chord and Scales by David Mead. It's a British author, it's full of humor, it's fun. Remember studying until midnight and later about scales, so many fingerings, and he's explaining really, really well scales in general, guys, right? So, kind of lost my pick. So, yeah, so these kind of were my first encounters, Joe Satriani, trying to understand what's going on by buying these tab books, and then the chords and scale work of David Mead, and that kind of starting to come together. And you know what, guys, I come up with a few conclusions for myself. First of all, those 7 modes, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, those correspond to 7 fingerings, right? For example, a C Lydian sound, right? To 7 fingerings, here they are, first of all. Secondly, that each of these fingerings I can start on the root note on the 6th string. For example, I just did that on a C Lydian. I can do, like, for example, maybe a C Phrygian. This is a C Phrygian, kind of a more dark sound. So I also found out that it's kind of scholars, right? These are just scholars. They're so much more nuanced than major and minor. These are colors, and I'm giving you here a kind of a diagram of how they sound in my ear, and I even gave them names, guys. I'm also giving you, without going into too much detail, the degree or the scale note that I believe is the most characteristic for that sound, that color of that whole scale. But that's my first conclusion. Modes are colors, modes are sounds, are moods, and I choose which mood I want, right? Or the backing track chooses that for me. Or if I have a very simple jam, right, in a D or a C with just a bass note, it's just that. So, and in the David Mead course or book as well, guys, there's a very simple backing track, right? And it's this one. And I'm going to include that one on Patreon for all tiers. It's this one. If it wants to play, right? It's a very simple C note. And I was like, let's have some fun with modes. So I really liked the C Lydian back then. So I was like, and I was, ooh, that kind of mysterious major sound, right? So again, guys, that conclusion that these fingerings are colors, are moods starting from the root note on the 6th string, I was very happy. Secondly, what I kind of found out, of course, is that not only are these fingerings or moods you can start on the 6th degree, they're also a way to unlock the fretboard. So here are those modes again, but they are always in that same position, meaning if I'm choosing a C Lydian sound over this simple backing track, right, then the next fingering is a Mixolydian fingering. So, right, that's how the C Lydian fingering starts. You get a C Lydian sound, but on that second note, let's place my first finger there, right, you get a Mixolydian fingering, right, which starts with 3 stretches. So if I would play a D Mixolydian over a C Lydian kind of vibe, I will still sound C Lydian because D Mixolydian has the same notes as C Lydian. Because those order never changes. Let's see. Here we go. C Lydian, again from the first positions. Then, second note. Here we go. D Mixolydian. I'm playing a D Mixolydian, but I'm gonna switch my phone off, guys. I apologize. So I'm playing a D Mixolydian, but it's still C. It has the same notes as a C Lydian. That's what counts. Let's do another example for you to really get that. Let's do a simple now C Ionian, maybe simple C major, right? Very simple C major. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Let's see, so this is a C Ionian. The order of those modes never changes. So to the left, to the right of a C Ionian, place the finger there, is a D Dorian now, right? So really important to get that. So a D Dorian has the same notes as a C Ionian. I can play a D Dorian over the C track and I will still sound C Ionian. Not sounding like a D Dorian, right? That's kind of maybe a little bit confusing, but it really depends on you setting the mood, right? I'm choosing a C Ionian sound, right? And then also C Ionian, when you go to the left, again, here's that schedule. To the left of it, there you have a Locrian fingering, right? So now I need to go only one to the left because the Locrian starts with this fingering, right? So I'm going from the 8th fret to the 7th fret. So let me play now a B Locrian over a C track, trying to get that C Ionian sound. It's gonna work. So here's a B Locrian over that C track. Again, guys, a B Locrian equals or has the same notes as a C Ionian, has the same notes as a D Dorian. But you all sound C Ionian here because that's what I'm choosing. My anchor point, right, is on the 6th string, root note 6th string on that C. I'm choosing a C Ionian, right? And then that sound is fixed, right? I only need to position those other fingerings just in the order that that schedule here says. I hope that makes sense, guys. Modes are nothing else than colors. You choose the color by positioning one of those 7 fingerings at the root note 6th string. Secondly, modes or those fingerings are also a fantastic way to fill out the fretboard. Just make sure you keep the order of those 7 modes always the same, right? A Locrian will always be on the left an Aeolian, and will also have always have on the right an Ionian. A Phrygian will also have to the left of it, in that side of the guitar, will have a Dorian, and on the right side of it will have the Lydian fingering. Always. It's the only thing that you can choose, is which mode you select to play and anchor on that 6th string root note. Alright guys, really hope that kind of helps. So the things that I'm showing here will be a little PDF as well on Patreon. So these are screenshots. Patreon, I'm gonna make that a little PDF for you as well to download. Maybe that helps. Now, how to practice this, right? Because there's one thing to really understand a little bit more in my story, but how to practice it. So first of all, if you don't know the 3 upper string fingerings, there's 7 fingerings, you need to learn them like crazy, right? And how you can do that is by, at least that's how I did it, is a very interesting principle which was taught years ago by Mr. Frank GAMBALE in his DVD. Back then it was a DVD, CHOPBUILDER. So I'm going to show a little fragment of that here. Alright, so the principle that Frank is teaching here is to learn those 7 fingerings in one position. He's using the G, right? Why is that important? Because you're learning them as 7 separate entities. So whenever you're like improvising, let's say here shows the A mixolydian, right? You want to go expand a little bit to the left or the right. You just really not only know like, oh, I already know one note of the mixolydian, so no. You want to learn them as 7 separate entities and really drill them in. So that's what I did in my living room. My wife got crazy about that. I was always like sometimes for 20-25 minutes I was really blazing through all those modes. Really, it's also a very good alternate picking exercise. So that's one practice in one position, so you learn those fingerings as separate entities and not for the moment really as how they are sequentially. That's gonna come automatically, guys, right? Secondly, learn and study Joe Satriani. That's what I did. I believe he's a real modal master. What I mean by studying, learn some of his songs, maybe buy these step books. Those are incredible, and just learn and enjoy those sounds because he's using the modes like a master. So I think that's a second really big piece of learning the modes is, for me at least, is study some Joe Satriani. This is not hard work. This should be fun. And now also these homeworks, guys, really depends on where you are, right? You might be thinking, you know what, those 7 fingerings, I already know them. Alright, check, don't practice them anymore, no problem. Maybe you wanna say, I don't know the Lydian scale, I really like that sound. Maybe I listen to a few Lydian songs of Joe, and so on and so on. Anyway, last part, very important, is how do you take this information into the fusion world, right? Well, I'm gonna first of all refer to a video that I've done. So those 3 upper string fingerings, right, those are cool. You really need to learn them, right? But I've done a video on how to convert them into more vertical shapes. I'm gonna link that at the end of the video here, guys. So why? Because at the end, that's what I've been telling you, you also need to learn arpeggio shapes. So you need to convert or adapt a little bit those 3 upper string shapes in a way that they are a little bit more vertical, right? The problem with, let's say, an A Ionian, see? Started on the 5th position, I've ended up in the 7th position. It's kind of very diagonal. It's not possible to connect arpeggio shapes to that, so that's why you need to convert them a little bit. It's very easy, that trick I'm telling you there. It's very, very easy. You don't have to lose any of the knowledge of 3 upper string. You just have to convert them a little bit. You'll end up with 5 fingerings. Some people call that caged. I don't care how you call it. It's just a very practical way in that video I'll show you at the end. How you can convert them in vertical shapes. That will connect much better to arpeggio shapes. Alright guys, so that's one, how you take those 3 upper string, or those modes, excuse me, into the fusion world. You convert them to more vertical shapes by just watching my video, I guess, about how to do that. Secondly, maybe I'm going a little bit on a limb here, I don't know, or how we call that, or a landmine, or get some controversial stuff going on, but fusion guitar in general is nothing more than mixing jazz with rock. So, in my opinion, here's a diagram. In the jazz world, for example, there's only 4 modes. First of all, you can be jamming over a major vamp, right? Maybe 32 bars major chord, right? Major 251, you're going to use Ionian. Secondly, find yourself in a minor vamp, right? Or a kind of minor blues, you're going to use Dorian. Thirdly, you find yourself in a kind of a dominant vamp or just standard blues, you're going to use mixolydian. And at the end, if you find yourself in like a minor 251 situation, you're going to be using Aeolian. So Fusion World, there's only 4 modes, I believe, or 4 anchor points you're gonna choose on that root note 6 string. And my advice then, simply find some backing tracks, right? Using those modes and practice that, but play over them using those converted shapes, more vertical shapes, right? And that will bring you closer into the Fusion World, because that's what's kind of needed. So those are the steps. Let me conclude for a moment here, guys, and let me wrap up with some homework as well. So as a conclusion, there's 7 modes, 7 fingerings, 7 moods, right? And also what you need to know, so you can place them on the root note 6 string to get a sound, to select a sound that your guitar will make. And also these fingerings are always neighbors in the same order, and that's a great way to fill the fretboard, as I explained. Secondly, how to practice. First of all, go play along with, I'm gonna leave the link as well in the description, go and play along with Frank Gambale CHOPBUILDER, so really drill these 3 upper string fingerings in there. Go and study some Joe Satriani, buy stab books, because in the beginning of these stab books he's really explaining well which mode he's using, why he's using that. There's kind of the pitch axis theory, there's so interesting stuff. There's only 8 pages or something in these books, but it's incredibly valuable, really recommend doing that. And thirdly, guys, go and watch my video. I'm going to show that and link that in the end, how to convert 3 upper string, which are much too diagonal, in more vertical shapes. You don't have to lose any of your 3 upper string knowledge to more vertical shapes, and practice over backing tracks, which is 4 modes: Ionian, Dorian, Mixolydian, and Aeolian are the ones that are used in jazz guitar. Alright, so as always, there's going to be some downloadable goodies on Patreon for people that support me there. You can join that club too in the description below. It's gonna be kind of a PDF that I'm going to make with all screenshots, so it's handy for you guys to work on that. Also, secondly, some backing tracks. I'm gonna share that backing track that you just heard, very simple backing track with a C bass note. Practice those modes over and really enjoy those sounds. And some more specialized backing tracks for the higher tier as well. Also, guys, remember there's that arpeggio guide. As always, you gotta learn some arpeggio shapes eventually if you want to get into fusion guitar, so why not start now? It's for free. It's gonna bring you into my club as well, so on and so on, but get that in the description below. If you like what I'm doing here, you're learning some stuff, well, please subscribe, because next week I'm thinking about going on Sunny, and of course I'm gonna continue this little basic series on basic stuff to catch up with Fusion World. And finally, guys, here's that video, right? How do you convert 3 note per string, that whole system, into just a little bit more vertical shapes without not throwing away any of your 3 note per string knowledge, of course. Woo! Alrighty, guys, see you later. Bye, thanks for watching.